Hello everybody, we back with another video. Today I intend to do two. We're going to start with the unfun subject before we start with the funny subject. We're going to talk about a mass shooting that just happened in Lewiston, Maine. Well, I'm sure most people know about this. This guy, it's the usual thing where he was angry, and this is half, this is half and half assault rifle problems with obtaining them, and half mental health problems caused by right wing radicalization. And as far as I've read and stuff like that, the Wikipedia article and seeing the news reports, this guy had apparently, and we can go down to this, like reports of, people talking about how he, was how I want to put this shit. That he was a threat to Raider society and should have been looked into by law enforcement a lot sooner. This guy was known to be a danger, and the police and law enforcement did nothing. Apparently, he was in the army, and he said he had he's in the Army Reserve, no active deployment, and the only other thing he ever had was DUI. Wow. They said he was behaving erratically and requested that law enforcement hearing voices and should shoot up a military base of psycho. You know, but it's half and half. This guy Twitter history was pulled up by some people. I see if I can find that. What's his name? Robert Card. Let me see Twitter. And this guy apparently was a fan of like Elon Musk and what happened. Let me see. I don't think I'm gonna be able to see. Social media left clues about his potential attack. Let me see if this article does it because I just want to because I'm just pulling up to point out that oh my god, dude, because I just want to point out that he was a fan of people like typical right wing radicalization type people, the Republican Party and their pundits, Dinesh D'Souza, and all the rest of the people that you can imagine. I think they say even the Nazi Tatter, oh Babylon B, a true Nazi server, and a bunch of fucking idiots, that go around, Jim Jordan and woo, a lot of terrible fucking people, dude. Oh, but point being is just that, okay, check me out. He was a fan of a lot of terrible people that promoted a lot of far right political opinions and what have you. Now the assault rifle thing is its own right, where it should be red flag laws on certain people so they can't just go buy guns if they are known to be members of white supremacist groups and what have you, or to be have a history of mental instability also, especially to the point where they are a threat to themselves and the society around them. These people shouldn't be allowed to buy guns. That's without said. I'm not saying that we should ban assault rifles outright. That'd be really stupid and really difficult to do in America. And it's political suicide for anybody, any politician to advocate for such a thing. Look at what happened to Beto O'Rourke. Good ideas, this one bad idea, crushed them. But point being is that the other half of this is right wing radicalization. And this is the point of this channel. My YouTube channel, even though we spend a lot of time laughing, being abrasive, and making fun of conservative pundits, I'm acting like that because I want people that are watching them to know that these people are full of shit and they don't care about you. And the things that they're saying is for profit and it benefits nobody but, wealthy people or white supremacy. And that goes to actual white nationalists and neo Nazis. That goes to people who are just on the red pill or black pill incel type stuff. That goes to people who are in movements like the Black Hebrew Israelites or any other far right, fake black political movement. And this goes to people who identify with white supremacy as like black Republicans and what have you. I do this channel to as a way I can't prevent nobody from listening to, but as a second opinion on a lot of terrible things that's said about minorities and other people, because the inevitable conclusion of This type of radicalization is either you live your life isolated and angry, or you push away every opportunity to get better as a person, or it's violence. And neither one to me is a good way for anybody to live their lives or in their lives. So I do the things that I do, and I talk about people the way that I talk about them. Is not because I have hatred or I'm condescending or I feel like I'm better than the next person over. We all been there where we had things about life we didn't understand, or things in life where we were angry, but you got to come on the other side of that as a better and bigger person and see that, a lot of this dumb stuff that conservatives say is simply not true. Like, women are not getting flown around by rich men and getting having like tons of sex and then coming to the nice guy later. We're not living in a society where LGBT people are taking over media, or women either. We're not living in a society where some deep state elites, which is basically the Jewish question rephrased, or cultural Marxists, are running society. We live in a society of capitalist exploitation, and we are all the victims of that system. And it's and its comorbid influences on white supremacy and what have you, and patriarchy and what have you. The problems that's causing you grief in society is not caused by a minority group of people, and the only way to really fix things to make them better, we gotta push to make society better ourselves. We can't not be hating on the next person over, or thinking that a certain demographic of people is your enemy. I put up this video by Arnold Schwarzenegger, which I may or may not have a lot to add, because if anybody ever watches my channel or starts watching anything that I have to say, I really want them to just know that you can walk away from this stuff. Also, is that I might, if I have a little bit of time, I think I do, because I'm not leaving until 5, but you can walk away from hatred, and it doesn't matter how deep in that you are, or like how far to the edge or center of hate that you are. And like I said, it doesn't matter if you're a Hebrew Israelite, doesn't matter if you're like a white nationalist or neo-Nazi, a Klansman. It doesn't matter if you're just an angry man that just doesn't understand certain things about women and gay people. You can turn your back on and walk away from this stuff. This stuff doesn't have to be your life, because like I said before, as a person who lived like that somewhat, the inevitable conclusion of that is not women seeing you as an alpha male and trying to suck your dick. It's not blacks bowing down to you or whites bowing down to you. The end conclusion of this type of right-wing radical behavior is grief, mental health issues, anxiety, and a lot of this stuff leads to either isolation or violence, or sometimes both. So again, if you have these beliefs, these radical far right beliefs that people are trying to, pull you down, especially, because you're straight, or, because you're white, or because you're a man, or, people are telling you that some demographic of people is superior to another, you shouldn't listen to what they have to say, and think about, the bigger picture in society about how everybody is going through a certain thing. So I guess we can get started with the Arnold Schwarzenegger debate. I just wanted people to know that it's a better way to look at life, and it's a different way to go about life. You don't have to live your life of hatred. And I will say again before I even press play, I've been there before. When I was really misogynistic, when I was homophobic, when I didn't understand trans people and stuff, not only did the world actively show me that I was wrong about these people every day, I also learned that the same people that hated them also hated me. And then I also saw the damage, all these nightclub shootings, and these Nazi marches going on nowadays and stuff like that. You start to see the inevitable conclusion of these beliefs is violence, ignorance, hatred, belittling of the other. So again, you can always walk away. Let's go.
We've seen all over the world. A few months ago,
and I feel like this video would be good for any type of radicalization, because I feel like at the end of the day, most right-wing beliefs, whether we're talking black separatism, white nationalism, neo-Nazism, or the Hebrew Israelites, whatever, is that the inevitable conclusion is blaming Jews for stuff, or blaming gay people and women for all society's problems, instead of organized society in a better way that benefits everyone. And a lot of this, these things that are being propagated to a lot of young men, especially, winded up, because this stuff like like sexual anxiety, economic anxiety, all this stuff isn't new, and a lot of these people are being manipulated by a lot of these podcasters and these right wing micro celebrities and into hatred, and they wind up going to go do something terrible, or they join terrible movements. What I'm getting at is that in both Mussolini's Italy and Franco's Spain and in Nazi Germany, and I'm sure even Imperial Japan, a lot of these beliefs were, even I'm sure it was worded differently for the time, were also pushed on the men of that era. America even had to wrestle with a Nazi movement, which didn't really become unpopular until not even when Britain and France was fighting the Nazis, but until America was fighting the Nazis, that it become unpopular for an American person to be on the streets in the Nazi. The American First movement was a Nazi movement. All I'm saying is that these beliefs have one conclusion. Why are women becoming feminists? It's because of the Jews. Why are black people taking up more positions of political power? How did President Obama become, president? It's because of the Jews. Why is it so many gay people and transgender people in media? It's because of the Jews. All this stuff has the inevitable conclusions of anti-Semitism anyway. Because when you dig deep enough, you start to understand the dog whistling and the language propagated by a lot of these hate movements. They say things like matrix or deep state or cultural Marxist, which is basically a rebranding of the Nazi Judeo-Bolshevism. You get anti-Semitism at the center of everything. Even the anti-vaccine stuff. Look at the shit not John F. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy's stupid ass is saying. But this is where hate leads to. It leads to grief, war, possibly genocide. So, as we go through this video where Arnold Schwarzenegger, who's one of your fellow Republicans, ironically enough, even though he doesn't do anything that benefits Republicanism nowadays, except make videos like this, I see. We're going to walk down this path with him, listen to what he has to say, as well as what I have to say, to try to get people to understand that you should walk away from these kind of beliefs. Because I don't want you to be the next person on the news, as much as Arnold doesn't, apparently.
Auschwitz, the Nazi concentration camp, where 1.1 million men, women, and children lost their lives. Almost all of them were ruthlessly murdered simply because they were Jewish. When you walk through a place like Auschwitz, you feel a tremendous weight. There are reminders everywhere of the horrors that happened there. The suitcases never claimed by the prisoners, who were told to remember exactly where they left their belongings so they could retrieve them after they were finished with their showers. The shoes, the gold teeth, and the hair that were taken from the murdered to be reused by the murderers to fund their evil. The log books with thousands of names crossed out as if a cruel accountant only measured death. The gas chambers with scratches on the walls from the fingernails of people who tried to hold on to life. The crematorium, where the Nazis tried to erase all of their atrocities. Let me tell you something. The weight on your back hits you at the very beginning heavier than any squat I've ever done. And it never goes away. It's the feeling of history, of millions of voices that were silenced decades ago, begging you, not to just look at their shoes, but to spend a few hours in them, to imagine you were there. Because once you imagined that you arrived on that train, and you were sorted into those lines, and you smelled the smoke that didn't smell like any wood you've ever burned before, and you never saw your families coming out of those showers, and then you worked your butt off.
I suppose also that's a good way to put it, is that you could not imagine. I don't think it's good for YouTube to stay on this photo. We go back to this because I don't want my video taken down for showing emaciated prisoners of war and what have you. But it's just like, yeah, put yourself in their shoes. Imagine how you would feel, because we got a lot of people blaming minorities for problems these days, but they never want to put themselves in perspective of like growing up a certain way, and trying to get a greater understanding about what if I had less? What if I wasn't, straight? What if I wasn't white? What if I wasn't a man? What if I, was trans and stuff like that? How would I want to be treated? Well, what if I was Jewish? And a lot of people do not put themselves in perspective of those that they wish to persecute. And most of these people, these minorities people, being a minority myself, are just trying to scrape through life and live the best that we can with what we have. But unfortunately, we have a lot of people that have a shifted perspective where, you have places like Fox News, Tucker Carlson, infamously, and all the rest of these people saying things like, oh, immigrants are like living in penthouses and shit. Or that trans people are taking up all the spots in media. And, we get this society where people, have a shifted perspective and they don't care to show understanding to people that are going through worse things than they're going through.
Like a ghost in a person. And then when you couldn't work anymore and they considered you useless, they sent you to the showers too. Once you've spent the time to really think about all of those things, then your imagination has no choice but to start the real work. How do we stop this from ever happening again? After a trip to Auschwitz, you would never question why. Never again is the rallying cry of all of the people who fight to prevent another Holocaust. You will never question that. But today, I don't really
Shit, not directly they wouldn't.
want to talk to those people. I don't want to preach to the choir here. Today, I want to talk to the people out there who might have already stumbled into the wrong direction, into the wrong path. I want to talk to you if you've heard some conspiracies about Jewish people or people of any race or gender orientation and thought, that makes sense to me. I want to talk to you if you found yourself thinking about anyone is inferior and out to get you because of their religion or the color of the skin or their gender. I don't know.
He's not going to bring this up, and I have to break up this video with pauses as it's a commentary video. Is that, to be honest with a lot of working class white people, the thing that they need to understand is that a lot of working class white people are quote unquote not Richard Nixon's and like Ronald Reagan's words, and the rest of those guys, not mine, collateral damage of capitalism and the drug war. You see, it is a lot of working class white people out there that are getting fucked over by the system. That's why I know on Gothic's video when she was being dishonest and talking about some, oh, when police brutality happens to white people, nobody cares, because I deeply understand that it's a lot of people out there that feel that they are ignored, that that their plight doesn't matter, and they become more vulnerable to the radicalization that causes them to feel, how I want to say, yeah, just plain ignored by society. And a lot of people, the things that they preach, you will start to think that the things that they experience and go through doesn't matter. And that's really fucked up, because people do care about the things that working class white people go through, and the things that working class white people go through are ironically the result of capitalism, white supremacy, patriarchy, and to some extent heteronormativity. The problems are not caused by Jewish people or black people or Latino or Arab immigrants and what have you. The system is exploiting and hurting everybody, and it's a lot of working class white people that need to realize that. And it's the enemies that are exploiting us and hurting us are rich people, and it's not because they are hurting us. Look how many TV commercials they have with blacks on them, an interracial couple. No, it's because the place that you work for exploits the shit out of you and pays you pennies on a dollar to work your ass off from 8 to 12 hours depending on the shift. And as a factory worker, I understand the brutal sweating, like getting cut and bruised, coming home worn out, body feeling like rubber, and then not really getting enough to get by, or barely getting enough to get by. So all I'm saying is that You know, because Arnold Schwarzenegger, you know, probably is a capitalist, even though this is still a good de-radicalization video. You know, anti-capitalism is a whole nother story. But these conspiracy theories are drummed up most of the time by rich people or people who want you to be, you know, in their private militia, or they want you to be a terrorist. You know, all these people that are going around saying that, oh, you know, it's this demographic of people causing you the problems. They're lying to you, because the problems in society, you know, the economic inequality and anxiety that so many people of many different races or demographic feel in America is easily traceable. And we do not need to waste our time, you know, blaming our problems on pretty much innocent people.
The road that has brought you here, but I've seen enough people throw away their futures for hateful beliefs. So I want to speak to you before you find your regrets on the end of that path. I've talked a lot about my father and the broken man that I was surrounded by when I grew up in Austria after the Second World War. You know, they drank to numb their pain. Their bodies were riddled with injuries and shrapnels from the even war, and their hearts and their minds were equally riddled with guilt. But besides the guilt and the injuries, they felt like losers, not only because they lost the war, but also because they fell for a horrible loser ideology. They were lied to and misled into a path that ended in misery. Some of them.
Although a lot of people in the United States, you know, I don't ever think we're gonna see United States government be taken over by fascism the same way as those European governments were in the early 20th century. But don't hold your breath yet. Trump is still trying. But at the end of the day, there still holds truth here, where a lot of people are lied to about these far right political cults, rather, like I said, it's neo-Nazism, Hebrew Israelitism, and what have you, having ways out for people. But at the end of the day, you don't do anything but make yourself a foot soldier of hatred. And then when you actually carry out your task or something like that, you wind up because you know, especially in America, the way that it's organized now, there's nobody overthrowing the government, far left or far right. And what winds up happening to a lot of people that think that they're right-wing revolutionaries, you know, revolutionary in a sense that they're reactionary, they wind up you know, they kill a bunch of people, right, do bombings or whatever, and they wind up in prison for the rest of their life, or at least 15 to 20 years, or they wind up dead, you know, happen to kill themselves, run shootouts with the police, or maybe one time they pick a fight with somebody that they can't win against, and they wind up getting themselves hurt. When you live a life of anger, you know, this anger that a lot of these right-wing people feed you, make you feel invincible, and have you feeling a sense of justice and a sense of righteousness, but it always ends in you losing, because all these commentators on the internet, and I'm not trying to name people by name because I'm trying to, like, you know, keep my videos away from drama, but you know, I'll just name some people, fuck it, like Stefan Molyneux, Kanye West, Kyrie Irving, you know, all these people, Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro and stuff like that. Like, especially Stefan Molyneux, Kanye, Nick Fuentes, and what have you, or any quote unquote leader of Black Hebrew Israelitism, or any of the other, you know, stupid shit like that. I'm not just talking white nationalism too. I care deeply about far right radicalization, no matter in all of its forms. But all I'm saying is that when you do that shit, Nick and Stefan and Kanye ain't going to jail. The rest of the people that are in your cult, in your fucking chapter, in your little club, whether it's online or in person, none of those people are 9 times out of 10 gonna get held accountable with you, and they're not gonna go through with your whatever you do, you know, to hurt other people or to express your hatred. These people will not face any consequences for what you did, and they, you know, they phoned you up. They made you angry at people who aren't doing anything wrong. It's like you know, gay nightclub shootings, or especially shootings at like yoga studios and shit. I'm surprised that hasn't happened like that. But it's like a lot of these people phone you up. Women are whores and bitches. They hate you, or this demographic of people, the Jews are doing this and that, or it's black people are taking the white man's place in America. They gas you up to do all this shit, and when you go out to do it, it's only 2 ways out. You're gonna get life imprisonment, or you're going to have to kill yourself, or you're going to get shot in a standoff with the police. Either way, your life is ruined. But even contextually in the time being, As you listen to these people and they isolate you from opportunities, they isolate you from ways out and people that understand and care about you and can give you a second opinion on ways you can live your life, or things that you get wrong. You lose out on opportunities to become a better person and escape. So keep that in mind when you're listening to these people, is that when these people, whatever happens to them, whatever you do and whatever happens in your life because you listen to these people, you wind up hurting somebody. Nobody's gonna think you were justified. Look at like Elliot Rodgers, a good example, and stuff like that. Everybody collectively thinks that he's a piece of shit, a slime ball, and as they should. Like, he radicalized himself and was radicalized by other people, and even the dude that did the van shit, and as many far right and right wing terror attacks happen, both big and small happen, we start to see that these people wind up dead or in jail, and their life, even in the context of the time being before they died, is effectively ruined. So keep that in mind. These people won't face consequences for the things that you do, but you will face the consequences for the things that you do. And nobody cares. Like, and I'm going to say this before I press play, because you can tell them, like, oh, I was radicalized by this. You can lay it out to the cops. You can lay it out to law enforcement and what have you. But, people that are online have plausible deniability. Like, you can say that, but Candace Owens told me that immigrants were taking jobs from blacks. And then you tell the police that, even if she did say it, they can't really prosecute her. You the one, did the terrorism. So you are going to be the person, that takes the fall for the things that you did. So, just look out.
Joined the Nazis because they were filled with hate. Some of them joined because they thought they deserved more in their lives. And they bought into that idea.
And we all do, but it's not taking it directly from other people because they're a different demographic than you. There's people to take it from, but it's not, your fellow citizen often at a time that's working right next to you.
The only way to make their lives better was to make other lives worse. Some of them joined because they were frustrated with the government, and some of them just joined because everyone else was doing it. In the end, it didn't really matter why they joined. They were all broken in the same way. That's the bottom line here.
Yeah.
I mean, if you find yourself at the crossroads, wondering if that path of hate might make sense to you for one reason or the other, or even wrapping yourself with a flag of hate, I want you to know where that path ends. I want you to see it very clearly in front of you in your mind. Because...
And even throughout even though I was never right wing, I can't talk, but no, it's dead ass serious. Times where I had like a lot of right wing beliefs, like I was kind of sexist, I was kind of homophobic and what have you. And and I had a certain view of a type of people, ironically enough, being an alternative black kid too, not knowing that these people were like, directly crossing over and being in the same groups and same things I was into. But as I developed through life, of course, I start to understand that. But the only thing I'm gonna say, at least for me personally, I missed out on a lot of opportunities because I had bigoted beliefs about certain type of people, or I held up certain standards that I didn't have to. For instance, like going on dates with certain women and stuff like that. Like, ironically enough, I just made fun of that mediocre tutorials and reviews, like stupid fuck, for trying to dunk on black women and blame all the black man problems on them, when I didn't have any systemic analysis on how to understand the problems in the black community. And what did that get me? That didn't get me no white queen or no snow bunny or nothing like that. That got me isolation, loneliness, and fingers pointed at me for saying those terrible things. That shit didn't help me win or get better in life. Even though right now we're talking about like actual violence, I'm just giving you a little bit of context how these beliefs make you less of a palatable person for people to be around. And it's like I said, I say in videos all the time, especially when it comes to women. Women don't want to be with nobody that's constantly talking about how women got a place to stay in and how useless they are. So keep that in mind if you are on like the red pill or black pill train, or any train for that matters, because society has come to a point where we are very integrated with each other, and we cross over a lot in various different cultures, and you cannot hold on to your bigotry because it makes you miss out on opportunities that can possibly make your life better.
Throughout history, hate has always been the easy path, the path of least resistance. I get it. And I mean, it's easier to find a scapegoat for a problem than to try to make things better ourselves, right? But let me be clear. You will not find success on the end of the road. You will not find fulfillment or happiness. Because hate burns fast and bright. It might make you feel empowered for a while, but eventually consumes whatever vessel it fuels. It breaks you. It's
That's
the path.
that's all I was gonna say and stuff like that. Also, that's all I was basically saying is that, again, when you're fueled up by hate, like I said, from anybody, be it like Tucker Carlson, Ben Carson, or Thomas Sowell, or what's that motherfucker, Minister Farrakhan or whatever, is that at the end of this path and stuff like that, you wind up doing something terrible and you burn out. You're finished. Like after you isolate yourself from your friends and family, you lose on opportunities that could have opened your mind and made you a better person. You wind up doing something violent, or you live an isolated life of bigotry, and you burn. You literally, like you said, you burn out. And it is the path of the week. He didn't get to say it yet.
Path of the weak. And that's why there has never been a successful movement based on hate. I mean, think.
And there hasn't. No matter what movement of hatred has been founded by anybody, it has not been successful. You can argue that the colonialism kind of, I mean, that wasn't directly, it was partially racial hatred and racial bigotry, and partially economic exploitation of, the second and third world, by, Britain, France, and the Dutch and what have you. So I kind of think that it has been some success, but you won't find that same success in the modern world. I think he's implying, especially after colonial era, is because when you divide yourself from other people and you say only certain people can fight in my military, only certain people have a right to life, only certain people can participate in my economy, and you base a ideology around hatred and excluding people, you wind up with an ideology that has thin pickings for people to help you in any way, whether that be militarily, whether that be stimulating the economy, or that be just general living and organization of society, just having ideas on better how to organize society. Because believe it or not, minorities in general, have contributed a lot to society, especially to the beautiful West that a lot of these people like to brag on about. If it wasn't for minorities, from food to music to even military equipment that we gotten, we wouldn't have any of that if it wasn't for a minority person having an input. And I'm not saying that minorities invented everything. Of course, a lot of white people invented a lot of shit. Nobody here is stupid, but minorities contribute greatly to the societies that they're allowed to participate in, and they always make it better.
Think about that. The Nazis,
Lost.
losers. The Confederacy, losers. The apartheid movement, losers. And the list goes on and on. I don't want you to be a loser. I don't want you to be weak.
And you can see that right now by what's happening to Trump. Whether you believe the things that happen, like that's happening to him legally, are legitimate grievances or not. Look at what's happening to the guy, dude. He is literally like he's going through shit right now, and I can't even so many legal troubles of him losing his business license, to the January 6th stuff, and all the way to the stuff in Georgia, the stuff in New York City. All the fact that he is dumb enough to get on a phone and try to tell somebody to find a certain amount of ballots and what have you. Look at him. He was the leader and the poster boy of the modern white supremacist movement, and he's burnt out and gone. And I feel like at the end of the day, he was possibly the final boss, and anybody that they even tried to prop up after him has stagnated and failed. Look at what happens to Ron DeSantis' campaign. They tried to make him a Trump replacement, a younger guy, still a piece of shit, but able to sell his demographics better. And I mean, his not his demographic, but the far right beliefs of the Republican Party is a little better because he's more coherent, he's younger, he can talk in ways. He actually take orders from the establishment while also, you know, while also being very far right himself. And his campaign burnt out. There has not been a single right wing candidate that's been able to get their campaigns off the ground to the point that Trump once was. You know, and not to mention the fact all the other people that I even named earlier that were like big cult leaders of this right wing radicalization wind up burning out. Look at Andrew Tate, looking at a prison sentence, a rapist, pedophile, been exposed as like a sex trafficker. Look at Ben Shapiro. Nobody listens to anything that he has to say too much nowadays. I think a better one would be like Richard Spencer. Remember when Richard Spencer was literally on the news? He was on the news, like MSNBC and what have you, doing interviews talking about how he wasn't racist. We just believe, this alternative right stuff and about, we don't think any race is better or worse. And then, the shit that happened at Charlottesville to all those people and stuff. Look at what happened to the Proud Boys in general. The Proud Boys are a neo-fascist, pretty much a neo-Nazi street gang who went around, trying to intimidate and beat people up. And look at all their leaders and what have you, like Dominic Pizzola. All these people are in prison. And their lives are ruined. And he's right. Be strong enough to see past hatred and be strong enough to, do self-introspection and ask yourself why you feel a certain way against different demographics of people instead of just being spoon-fed what these people say about these people. Like, for me, for instance, a good example was like, I used to be like very transphobic, right? Because I did, even though I was not like the type of person who would go out of my way to hurt a trans person or something, but I was kind of like, man, the thing's kind of like, weird. I was a kid back then. And that day on the bus, I don't know if I ever discussed it in the video. I think I did when I went over to that John D. Rudy video. But, and I saw that person get mistreated, getting bullied and harassed. And, I saw how I was even powerless to really do or say anything. And I started to see, like, damn, like they really don't have issues. Then, I also, even against my own people, because I used to be like the type of black person, like, man, more black people just need to work. But it turns out black people are very hardworking. We just live in a system that's rigged against us. Point being is that be strong enough to do like actual research on the people that you quote unquote have issues with, and be strong enough to see past hatred, because only a weak person lets themselves sieve and sedate in bigotry.
See, I've spent most of my life helping people find their strength. This is where the action is, strength. And despite all of the things that we may disagree about, and all my friends who might say, Arnold, don't talk to those people, it's not worth it. I don't care what they say. I care about you. I think you're worth it.
And I do too, because I literally done had arguments with people and stuff like that where they say that, oh, you making, even like me making these videos and what have you, or even talking and arguing with people in person, that, even some people who are like former friends of mine who I might call out for some of the stuff that they say sometimes. I do care about people that have these beliefs, especially that are, very similar to my demographic. And it's not about race and what have you, but I know it's a lot of quote unquote, nerdy kids out there who felt isolated, dealt with a lot of bullying and ostracization because the things that they like to do, or because they had maybe like autism and like anxiety, social isolation, and people are debilitatingly bullied for being a little bit different from everybody else, or even sometimes a lot different. And I'm here because I know what it's like to be the nerdy kid sitting in the corner, holding off crying because it feels like nobody cares about you. And then, like, you want to feel some sense of justice and some sense of righteousness for being who you are. But before you find somebody like me or any other leftist YouTuber, you find somebody that's teaching you hatred instead of teaching you to, just analyze why people are the way that they are. Or see the bigger picture. Or even see that things are getting better. Like for instance, it's a good thing more girls are watching anime and playing video games. Be lucky.
I know that nobody is perfect, I can tell you this firsthand. And I can understand how people can fall into a trap of prejudice
I'm
and
turning on the
hate.
heat, man. It's getting cold.
Whether you grow up surrounded by hate or get sucked into by some of big tech's algorithms that push.
Oh my motherfucking goodness, dude. I hope you can hear me over this heater. I'm gonna talk a little louder just because to be honest with you, dude, I feel like they fixed it and things have gotten a little bit better, especially since more content creators have been making media about you know, different subject matters and what have you. Is more voices that are left leaning or center leaning on different subjects. But take for instance, dude, I remember back the thing that got me into kind of the right wing black pill shit was literally not even sometimes googling and sometimes looking up on YouTube how can you find a girlfriend, and instead of telling you that, you know, to take care of your hygiene, get a job, and you know, be open minded to different kinds of women and what have you, and you know, and also teach you to be patient. You find people with like pretty much get rich quick schemes, or people telling you that all women are whores or women are too stupid to know when a guy is good. And I feel like that's still a problem on YouTube, because look at the rise of a lot of these dipshit people, where you got so many people going around with millions of views talking about how you know, women ain't shit, and it goes on to everything else and stuff like that. Like you try to talk about, because like I said, nobody really, bro, except for pretty much the only YouTuber, especially when we discussing black issues, that actually break shit down, you know, that's not a live streamer, is FD Signifier. Other than that, everybody else that you find will make videos in which they don't actually criticize the systems that we live under, but they will make videos criticizing like black women themselves or the black community itself, instead of criticizing the system that we live under and that caused the black community to be a certain way that it is. And I'm sure this crosses over to you know, a lot of white guys can, even though, you know, I'm discussing black dating, you know, the same thing can apply to white dating and what have you, because you know, a lot of the gender stuff is a-racial before you get to the actual like neo-Nazism or black separatism. So yeah, there is a problem with the YouTube, Google search algorithm, even the Facebook algorithm, and you know how fucked up Twitter is now. Where pretty much well, they fixed it kind of. The last time I went on there before I deleted my account, I checked to see that they fix it, and like yeah, they fixed it, but you have like actual Nazis on your timeline a lot of the time, like James O'Keefe and James Alsop or Cat Turd telling you that you know, the deep state is coming to take your guns and make your wife marry a black person, wherever the fuck that they believe. But point being is just that yes, these algorithms, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, because it's really fucked. Because you got like even though he's felling off, like I said, he's gonna go to prison and all that other shit, that's fine and all, but you got like teachers talking about how 12-year-old boys know who Andrew Tate is. People who don't, and I guess at the end of the day, a lot of these people sell their political views as a lifestyle, but YouTube and the rest of these social media organizations need to get on this shit and stop these people from having platforms that are building platforms of hatred. That's all I got to say. But yeah, very serious problems with these algorithms, where you're trying to look for honest life advice and, or you know, socioeconomic problems, and then instead of finding things that actually inform you and make you a better human, you find stuff that teaches you hatred.
Should do the extreme, I can see how it can happen. I think all of us hold some prejudice. There's no two ways about that. And we have to fight it our whole lives. I know this is not the path of least resistance. It's easy to just throw around some bogus science claiming that you're superior to someone else than it is to actually work on becoming better yourself. It's easier to make excuses that the Jewish people conspired.
Yeah, that's 100% true. Because I guess it does take time for people to deconstruct. There's a really good Renegade Cut video about Trump supporters and their radicalization of why they believe certain things. But I guess this can apply to right-wing people at large. But it's like a lot of people, when they have these beliefs, they build a false reality. They build a false reality of things that that are non-existent to most normal people, things that are built on ignorance, that are built on hatred and othering other people, lots of conspiracism. And it's easier to just believe the conspiracy theories about this person trying to take away your freedom than it is trying to deconstruct that reality and say, hey, maybe these people aren't that way. I think the best way, ironically enough, and I'm going to bring up my hobby, which I brought up before, if you know what it is, that helped me get out of this radicalization. But simply going outside and partaking in activities with other people, especially those that are different than you, can really open a lot of eyes and show that these people aren't the people that these right wing radicalization, the stewards of this hatred make them out to be.
To hold you back than it is to admit that you just needed to work harder. It's easier to hate than it is to learn.
It literally is.
It's easier when someone challenges you to get hurty feelings and to go and find some echo chamber that will tell you that you're right and they're wrong. But remember, easier isn't better.
Don't really have nothing to add here.
When you spend your life looking for scapegoats, you take away your own responsibility.
And I know how
you
as a conservative love your personal responsibility. You're going to let these people take that away from you?
Strength. Nobody who has chosen the easy path of hate has gotten to the end of that road and said, oh, what a life. No. They die as miserably as they lived. No matter how far you
And I'm gonna keep saying this over and over again. People at the end of hate, like radicalization pipelines, you either die isolated and alone, or you get killed or wind up in prison the rest of your life. So be careful about that shit. I don't want that to happen to you. That's why I keep saying it over and over again. Because when you keep watching these videos getting foamed up by hatred of people, Jewish people, trans people, gay people, black people, or like they call them blacks, or Latino immigrants, and Arab people and what have you, you wind up doing something terrible, or you live your life isolated away from everybody because you feel society is too integrated and whatever, and you are miserable. No matter what happens to you, whether you die alone, whether you get shot, whether you die in prison or go to prison, it's always misery at the end of this right-wing pipeline. I want you to know.
I want you to know that you still have the chance to choose a life of strength. But you have to give up your war against everyone that you hate. Let's give up that war. Whether you hate them because of their color of the skin, or their religion, or their gender, or their sexual orientation, it doesn't matter. Give it up. Give up that war. The war that you have to really fight is the war against yourself.
That's 100% true, or against capitalism, I'll put it that way. But to be honest with you, being a leftist, like black activist, anti-capitalist, and what have you, kind of like, a very intersectional person, I just like to call myself generally left-wing. I feel a lot less weight on my shoulders because when you believe that you gotta hold up a lot of hatred against people, you wind up feeling like you gotta carry this weight everywhere, and everything about your life gets consumed by expressing this hatred. And it's a lot easier for you if you put that hatred down and let it go and open your mind to learn new things about life rather than carry that hatred all your life.
You have to fight a war against yourself. Now, it's not easy to look in the mirror and to change your own life.
It ain't gonna happen overnight.
It's hard as hell. You have to take responsibility. You have to learn new things. You have to feel uncomfortable. Good, because discomfort is how we grow.
Yeah.
That's how we become strong. If you run away from discomfort and resistance your whole life, you will always be weak.
True.
Just think about the gym, for instance. That's where I learned most of my lessons, right?
I'll let them go after this, but I want to talk about myself starting skateboarding. Is really one of the things that helped break me out of the rabbit hole of right-wing radicalization / inceldom that I was experiencing. No, I didn't get a girlfriend overnight. But here goes my thing. Back when I was growing up, right, I started skateboarding at about 17 years old. I used to get talked about a lot because I was poor and because I was an alternative black kid. You know, you can tell in this video I talk kind of funny, probably. I like a lot of weird, fast, loud music, you know, punk rock and crossover and what have you, metal. I also listen to old school rap, but that's neither here nor there. So, and of course, going through a divorce and what have you, my mom and my father, I grew up kind of angry every day, and the people that gave me the hardest time were women, and I felt like women, you know, were like so called in on a conspiracy theory to get me. And of course, you know, googling things about the problems I was facing didn't help, especially with the algorithm at the time, which was worse. It just leads you to people telling you that you can't be a nice guy, you got to mistreat women. There was nothing online that told me that just not be a nice guy, but be a good man. It was instead just a bunch of stuff, just, you know, feeding me more and more hatred, more and more fake history and falsified data, and more stuff about black people being this and black people being that, more stuff about, you know, gay people being this, because I used to watch, you know, because like just sitting at home and just looking for things to watch to understand what the problems in life that I was facing. You know, what's popular wasn't good. You know, some things led to another. And then, not to mention being, you know, of course, an alternative person and, you know, a quote nerd that was into alternative culture like anime, comic books, video games, action figures at the time. And it seemed, though, at this time especially, there was no like Vosh or Xanderhall or Turf Nation or anything like that, or Alec Gunter, to de-radicalize people and tell them different way, or people that just review media but so happen to have you know, left-wing views or even centrist views. It seemed like at this time every single thing, you know, and this is in between me skateboarding, by the way, was pushing people rightwards. Like, I got recommended people who were better off see me dead. Like, not all of them. Like, for instance, recommending me, like, I'm wondering about trans people. They recommend me Blair White videos. I'm wondering about race issues. I wind up on Steven Crowder and Andy Warski, you know, two fascists. And so outside of the internet, as I began skateboarding across, this is a very left-leaning community. Don't let Tim Pool or that one bitch that lost to the trans girl fool you. Skateboarding is a left-wing pastime, a very liberal activity with people who are not really judgmental or racist. You got people that can do anything. Anybody can do anything, but at the end of the day, I feel like the majority of skate culture is very left-wing and progressive. So the point being is that as I started skateboarding more and more, I started to meet different kinds of people. For instance, I started to meet, of course, being in Detroit, a lot of alternative black girls who skated. These girls were not my girlfriend or what have you, but it taught me that alternative black women existed, and there is women out there that understand the things that you're going through and understand how you feel. And you don't have to chase some silly goose bullshit about getting with like some white girl with a bunch of tattoos and what have you. I started to meet, of course, you know, a lot of gay and trans people. Like the time I was skateboarding during a pride event and stuff like that, and a lot of the people that you know, I was, you know, judging and stuff like that were cheering me on when I was skating, or just, you know, spoke to me and told me that I should have a nice day, because I'm a very like angry looking person. So a lot of people very often at the time do that. And then also, last but not least, getting further into punk rock and punk culture, you know, because a lot of punk rock in modern times is not all that political. But like, I guess some bands are, depending on what you're listening to, but a lot of the bands, especially because I am talking punk, are kind of like apolitical. But as I got further into punk culture, they started, you know, discussing things like, you know, white supremacy, homophobia, you know, sexism, and you know, anti-capitalism, police brutality. And Trump, while he was running at the same time, clearly showed me that these problems that I thought of being something of the past or being a relic of history were still problems in our country. And maybe, you know, this thing about racism being 1,000 years ago, or about women having equality because a woman can get a job or what have you, is not, maybe things aren't as simple as that. So skateboarding, not through the activity itself, of course it made me uncomfortable. My legs still hurt sometimes skateboarding now, let alone back then when I was like completely the fuck out of shape. But it put me in a lot of social situations where I was uncomfortable and I had to be around people who I had, you know, biases against. And also, of course, being in the punk community too put me in a lot of situations against people, you know, where I had biases against. Like I literally met like OnlyFans model and sex workers. I met gay and trans people. Um, I've met, of course, like, you know, alternative black women, of course, and, you know, lesbian women, of course, and you know, so many people who I had these biases against. I had to meet them. Some of which I had to take under my wing like they were like little brothers or little sisters. Point being is just that this activity, as I simply was going outside, trying something new, and introducing myself into a new community of people, taught me that a lot of biases that I had against people were not only not true, but maybe that the struggle that we all have together ain't so different from one another.
The muscles only grows from resistance. You have to struggle.
This is still true though.
Build strength. The more I force my hands against that steel bar, the bigger the biceps get and the stronger they get. When I was trying to squat 600 pounds and bench press 500 pounds and deadlift 700, it didn't feel like a walk in the park. It wasn't easy, no. I was uncomfortable. It was painful. I mean, look at those photos. I was struggling. I was crying out loud in pain. You know something?
I will say this: the crossover with the whole working out thing and stuff. Not only, of course, like you, cause I don't know which one to talk about. Because a lot of people think that skateboarding is just moving your legs for 5 minutes and then you stop and what have you. But yeah, I mean, I guess if you want to put it in the context of resistance and overcoming your fears and pushing yourself, yeah, skateboarding also made me do that. Also, like, you know, simply going down hills. You're scared. You know, your legs might already be a little sore. Your feet hurt. You start to, you know, of course, sometimes get injured, like you falling. You're scraping against the ground, so you're getting road rash and what have you. And sometimes these falls can be about 15, 20 miles per hour and stuff like that. And for a human body, you know, you're dragging yourself across the concrete sometimes and stuff. Or, you know, being so scared to, like, you know, do that first ollie. You're trying to, like, you know, like you got to roll on something while making a tail snap and kicking forward and you're in the air and you got to jump too a little bit. Like, dude, skateboarding, you know, is a very, you know, intense activity that physically, you know, makes a person uncomfortable too. And last but not least about the legs thing, because it's not just your legs, your core can hurt, your shoulders, your back, your neck sometimes, sweating like, you know, profusely, like you're somebody on a basketball court or somebody that's doing like 1,000-mile run or something like that, you know, out of water, out of breath, scared, adrenaline going, trying to get the next trick, you know, trying to ignore the pain, trying to get the next Red Bull, trying to get to the aspirin, trying to, you know, bandage up your scars so you can go out and skate the next day, or even just happen to sit out because you hurt your ankle, you hurt your toes, you messed up your shoulder catching yourself during a fall. And yeah, several times over the years, you know, and even today sometimes, like, yeah, from a physical standpoint, skateboarding will make you uncomfortable and it will push you as much as I feel, you know, weightlifting or boxing or what have you.
Your character are no different than your body and your muscles. If you want to grow as a person, you really have to make friends with pain. Yeah. Embrace the discomfort. Enjoy the struggle. You have two paths in front of you right now. One of them is going to be the harder one today. It's going to be downright painful. You would have to force your brain.
And it's okay if you got a person to talk to about these things, whether it's your mother or father. Father, often the time, probably ain't a good person to talk to. There's a lot of fathers foist this shit on their sons and stuff, but that's a whole nother convo. But if you have, you know, parents or a brother or sister or somebody that you can talk to about these problems, even if you go to therapy, it's okay to talk about this shit and it's okay to break down crying about it. Whether you do it by yourself or with somebody. Because, you know, as a person that was kind of in this sphere of thought, I know what it's like to feel duped and taken advantage of. I'm seeing how sunny it is outside. I got a little better out. But I know what it's like to feel duped and taken advantage of. And it's okay to feel sad and to feel pain and to express that pain. Even if you gotta cry. Even if you gotta curse and say, these motherfuckers had me believing that, these people were this and they are nothing. They're just fucking people, and you gotta go like crazy for a second. Go ahead and do it. And you shouldn't be ashamed of it, because when you letting out that anger about how you are duped, you're growing as a person.
In new ways. You might lose some friends who want to hold on to their weak beliefs, but as you pull yourself away from that anger and that hate, eventually you will start to feel empowered. You will realize that you have the greatest power of all, the power to change your own life. You will be stronger than you've ever known. The other path is easy, much easier. You don't have to change anything. Everything in your life that you aren't happy about can be someone else's fault. You can keep fueling yourself on that sugar high of hate. But the end of that road isn't pretty. I've seen it with my own eyes. You will end up broken, searching for ways to numb your pain and your misery. See, I don't want you to go through all of that. It's unnecessary. Let me tell you something. When I walked through that camp at Auschwitz, and I put myself in the shoes of those people herded into those gas chambers, it was horrifying. One of the darkest moments of my life. But in that darkness, a woman who survived the horrors of Auschwitz helped me find the light. I spent some time with her. It was a wonderful conversation with her. She told me that the Nazis could conquer cities and countries. They could take her freedom, her friends, her family, even her life. But they could never conquer her mind. What strength that woman had.
Yeah.
Wow.
And by the way, when you are living a life of hatred, or you're trying to lead a regime of hatred, briefly I'm going to say that people will never stop resisting you either.
So, the bottom line is, I don't care how many hateful things you may have written online. I don't care how often you've marched with carrying that hateful flag, or what hateful things you may have said in anger. There's still hope for you. There's still time for you. Choose strength. Choose life. Conquer your mind. You can do it.
Yes, you can.
Thank you very much for listening.
Oh yeah, man. And when I end off this video, I know I've been like sporadically ending videos and just saying, oh, that's it. But I want to say something at the end of this before I go anywhere. Everything that Arnold Schwarzenegger said in here, even though he's missing contextual details on certain things, which I added, he is 100% right. First of all, we can talk about the end of the road of radicalization. We're going to talk about this twice at this endpoint in this video. The endpoint of right-wing radicalization is not strength. It's not you ruling over America under a Führer. It's not going to end in women not being able to get jobs, or Jewish people being persecuted for whatever you believe that they're responsible for. It's not going to end with black people back in slavery, and it's not going to end with LGBT people losing their rights 9 times out of 10. The things that you're going to believe are only going to hurt you and affect your life. And I don't want you to wind up going to prison or wind up getting yourself shot over some bullshit some suit wearing jackasses said on the internet. You're a better person than that, and you're a stronger person than that. You don't have to believe the things that they say. Also, don't be a useful idiot, because I've noticed, especially with how racial the right-wing political sphere has been getting to dissuade accusations of white supremacy. There's been an issue with a lot of black people falling into that, and I really don't want you to get into it, because what are you going to do? Well, you're going to go to a I Hate Women rally, and then there's going to be a bunch of Proud Boys and neo-Nazis there. They're not going to welcome you as a good boy necessarily. You're going to be their cannon fodder fool and say, look, you're not racist. We got a good black here. And or they're going to beat the shit out of you. So be careful about that. 2 is that what else did we go over? Yes, you have to do self-introspection, and you have to be stronger as a person in order to escape this radicalization. I'm not expecting it to happen for anybody overnight, but the strength is worth it, rather than living a life of isolation, imprisonment, or death. And I think that's all I really have to say, is just look within the strength of yourself to make sure that you don't wind up the next person on the news for doing some type of shooting or something like that. I don't want that to happen to you. And from a personal point, from the heart, as I keep this video length up, I used to be a very angry person and stuff like that. You can say I'm still angry from a technical standpoint, but I grew up a very nerdy person, getting talked about and belittled for the things that I like to do and for the person that I was. And the answer to this is not hatred or belittling other people. The answer to this is knowledge, acceptance, and understanding of people that are different from you, and just acknowledging the fact that some people are not just gonna always understand who you are and the things that you like to do. And also let other people in, because a lot of people would say this, but you want to keep out other demographics of people. But let those demographics in and talk to them about their experience and the ways that they feel about certain stuff. And you don't know, you could grow as a person because you let these influences in. This has been James with a possibly very long video. Let's see the video length on OBS. You have a good rest of your day.